Awesome. All right, let's get right to it. So I want to get some context first. So right now, I'm going to pull up one of my client spreadsheets. Right now, as of yesterday, actually, we'll go as a few days ago. Let me refresh this. And the reason I give you the context on this client tracker sheet is because I'm literally in the process of scaling a DM like team right now, right? So like everything that I'm about to talk to you about is like literally what I'm working on or what I'm implementing. So as you can see right here, as of a few days ago, we're at 222,000 on this account, and this is all sales and chat, right? So this is no phone calls, nothing like that, just like VSL drops basically. And so, Laura, you had a question about that. We can come up with a way, or I can show you kind of how we're doing it, and that could be really useful for you as well. But anyway, so just for context, everything we're going to talk about is like all the stuff I've been putting into this account. So I've been working on this one for almost a full year now. It'll be a full year as of next month. So this is our, 222K. We're basically averaging around 25,000 a month right now, across time. So now we're starting to scale up. And so now I'm basically adding more team members into the team. And I'm going to show you guys kind of some of that stuff here of how I'm going to like manage that, right? Because managing DMs is like kind of hectic, right? It's like, what do you do with 1,000 DMs? How do you kind of do all that? So anyway, cool. Go here. So how to build and train, scale your DM setter team to 100K months. So I have this little screenshot right here. We had this lady that we were working with. She was a done for you appointment setting client. And I think this particular day we had like booked like 50 something appointments on her account, which was awesome. And then she, that day with her sales team, she had closed like 25K in 24 hours, 15 different signups, 5 paid in fulls. It was pretty sweet. So really good there. Let's see. So let's dive into the topics for the day. So we'll start with like how to build, right? So there's 3 sections to the program or to the presentation: build, train, scale. So we'll start with build. So like the first question I usually get with in terms of like building the team is like, where do I find my agents, right? So I personally had a team of around 32 people that I was managing directly when I was working for Jason Capital. So I've hired a bunch of people and I've also fired a bunch of people. So I've got a lot of context for like probably the things that you want to look for like hiring and firing. And really there's 2 traits that I really care about. Like provided you have like the right structure, the systems, and all the cadences in place that we're going to talk about here in just a minute, then the only thing I really care about is like sales ability or sales experience and coachability, right? So like the reason I need to know about those 2 things is because it like somebody that has experience in sales already is going to have some like biases and different things that are like, you need to kind of like untrain them. And then someone that's like new is like, they're kind of like a fresh slate, right? So it's just, you just need to know those 2 things, but then otherwise that's pretty much the only 2 things I hire for. Then in terms of like where to source the best people, I kind of broken these into tiers. So you see at the bottom right here, you have tier 1, tier 2, tier 3, and these are basically like countries, right? In terms of like how I think of like the setter ability per se. Now, not to say that anyone from tier 1 is better than anyone from tier 2 or tier 3, right? This is just like how, like, think of it like how they start, right? So I want to do a little exercise with you guys real quick, and I'll preface this by saying that I'm allowed to do this exercise because I'm Asian and I'm of color. And so like I'm not being racist or anything by like what I'm about to show in like a second here. But like the reason I'm doing it is because I just want you guys to like understand how I'm thinking about it, right? So I'm gonna show like 2 setters here, right? I'm gonna show you a picture of them, right? And then I'm gonna give you an example of a business, right? A different type of business that they're in. And then I want you guys to select which setter you think would be a better fit for that type of business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Everybody's good on that? Awesome. Okay, cool. So we have A and B, right? So let's say that you had a golf coaching business, right? Which setter would you choose for the golf coaching business, A or B? You guys can type in the chat if you want. We'll
White
make this.
guy.
Which is A.
White guy.
B, white guy. Yeah, you can unmute. That's fine, right? But why? Like, why did you choose that though? I think that's important to talk about.
Because white people
Like he
golf.
golfs.
He looks like he
He's
golfs.
more
Okay.
accustomed to the culture of golf or golfing. He could know more just because like maybe his family golfs or just the culture of it.
Right.
He actually
Yeah,
looks
very
like he
possible.
works at a golf
Possible, right?
course.
Go ahead.
He actually looks like he works at a golf course.
Possible, right? He could totally work at a golf course. Yeah. I mean, obviously we're making guesses because it's just a dude's face. But yeah, right. I agree. But I think Coral, you nailed it on the head, actually, in terms of the point I was trying to get at, which is like the culture fit, right? Like he understands like the lingo, probably more likely has like been exposed to like golfing terms and different things like that. So his like learning curve of like understanding it will be much shorter versus the guy from like India, right? And it's not to say that this guy can't do it, but he just needs more support, right? I think Kara, you're mentioning earlier about like kind of downloading your brain into like document form, basically, right? Or like how to like kind of take the brain out. And it's like that, like this guy on the left is going to need way more help, right? So you need more and more documentation versus the guy on the right is going to like maybe not need as much, right? Because he understands culture. That makes sense? Cool.
Yeah,
All right,
so
we're
the
gonna keep
white guy's
going.
more expensive.
So we're gonna get into that actually. So you skipped ahead like 3 slides for me. But we're gonna talk about that too. Cool. All right, so we're gonna keep going with the same exercise. So let's say we run a done for you Amazon FBA business. Right now, which guy am I gonna hire?
A,
Okay,
Indian guy.
is it unanimous A? Why? But why not B? I mean, B could also work. I mean, right? He could be fine too. But why did you
It's
choose A right off
uh,
the bat? Yeah, I'm curious.
too expensive.
It was just like too expensive. That's why. That's hilarious.
There's a
Also,
lot
like
more
a lot.
outsourcing for that.
Yeah. There's already like a market for that. Like there's people whose resumes are just built around Amazon FBA.
Yep. I think too, it's also like it's easier for them to talk about, right? Like someone from India could easily talk about like, hey, we're gonna do your Amazon. You know what I mean? Like it's very simple for them to explain, right? And it's easy to conceptualize. There's not like extra humps that they have to go over. So it's fair either way. You could pick either A or B, right? Because both of them would probably be just as good, right?
It really depends on what's on whose resume
Right.
and like their previous
Exactly.
experience.
Right. 100%. 100%. And that's something to consider later is like, and I'm going to talk about this later about how I run 24-hour coverage, which is, and you might actually want to put these people together. They might actually be on the same team. So that could be a workout as well. So we're going to talk about 24-hour coverage later in the presentation. Because actually that's how I have everything set up for our stuff, which is nice. Cool. All right, we're going to keep going. So let's say you have an operations consulting business, right? Like, which set are you going to choose?
What's on whose resume?
Right. Same answer. Coral's cheating because she hires people all the time.
Yeah, it's
I
not
already have a
fair.
chat setter team.
Coral, we have to keep you muted for now. We have to let other people in the class participate. So operations consulting, A or B? Yeah.
I would say B if he has to go on Zoom because that's more of a operations kind of face. If we're being horrible and like judging people just by their face.
No, you're not. You're not at all. You're not at all. So like, so somebody said it to me perfectly. We used to run a done for you like chat agency for like for appointment setting for a little while, and we hired someone, and it nothing wrong with the guy. But it was an Indian guy, and we put him in like a semi managerial role, and literally we got that feedback. We're like, hey, like you guys are an American company, right? Like why is this guy with an accent up there? Like, you know, so I mean, it's perception, 100%. Right. So I agree. I mean, it is what it is. All right, cool. Online fitness business. You guys kind of get where this presentation is going. So I can probably skip a couple of these, but you get it, right? This is the funny one. Actually, I worked with a lady that was doing cake courses, right? So like, let's say that you were hiring someone for a cake course. Which one would you go for?
Definitely the Indian guy. He looks like he eats cake.
That's funny. Perfect. So yeah, you guys kind of get that point of the exercise here, but it's part of it is about perception, but also the other side of it is about like the learning curve that it's going to take for this person to learn your offer, right? So if you have a complicated offer, like, so for example, like the client I'm scaling up right now, he sells life insurance, right? Super complicated offer, like very, very tough. Like, so I like most of the people that work on my staff are like It's mostly like American based people. I've got one guy from Pakistan, but I'll show you, Kara, like some documentation that I've given him that's allowed this guy from Pakistan to like really like crush it for us. Cool. All right, awesome. So we'll go into the people now, right? So tier one, obviously, US, Canada, Australia. Pros, right? Great English, easier time learning all the language stuff as we talked about, right? They're like pretty intuitive on like chat tonality, which is something that we didn't bring up, but I wanted to also point it out here. Chat tonality being like whenever you message somebody something to someone, like there's no like voice. So if it comes off like you might say something and it might sound rude in text, right? It's not because you wanted to be rude, it's just because it's just like the way it comes out in text, right? And the people in US, Canada, Australia are usually much better about it. They're like softer, right? Versus like people in like other countries, the way they communicate in English is just a little more straight up. So they can come off a little abrasive with leads, right? Especially like if you're doing cold, like having it can be, they can have a really tough time with cold because they're just not like calibrated the right way. And then cons, as Laura pointed out, right, most expensive in terms of compensation, right? You got to pay for talent. Opportunities got to at least be able to provide like $2,000-3,000 a month because average rent and expenses and all that stuff is gonna be around there, right? So they're gonna have to at least make like a decent amount of money, right? Cool. So then you have tier two. So these are like I like really from this country, like Colombia and Spanish speaking countries are like perfect because they're so exposed to like tourism and stuff like that usually their English is like really fantastic. And even from like a tonality standpoint and like understanding all of the like the nuances, right? And then the biggest one that I like is the currency advantage. So like if you hire someone from Colombia, if they're making like 1,500 to 2K a month, they're killing it. They're doing a really good, you know what I mean? Like comparatively to most people that are earning wise, like they're making good money. So you can, if your business is like not quite at the level or your opportunity is not quite at the level where you want it at yet, and you need to hire people that are like a little more cheap for lack of a better term, right? This can be a really good way to kind of start building your team. And then also generally, go ahead.
I said affordable. More
Affordable.
affordable talent.
More affordable talent. Yes. Now they're going to need training on like culture and context. And then the two ones that are kind of big is like, they usually have like some unsteady internet connection problems. So stuff will go down, stuff like that. And then, some of them have government problems. So you may stuff would happen all the time where it's like, hey, there's a riot down the road from me right now. And so, like anything like that. Right. So that's the one drawback. And then you have your tier three, which is like, India, Turkey, Pakistan, right? I like this guy's mustache. That's why I picked the photo. Big pros, currency advantage, and their work ethic is amazing. But the cons being that usually like their English isn't as great. They're going to need to use like Grammarly, AI tools, like all kinds of stuff to like make sure that their chatting is good. They're going to need training on like culture context. And they also still have the unsteady internet connections and government problems over there too. Like we have one guy right now that's literally he lives in Yemen. He's like my website landing page guy, and like this dude, like he like they're like there's like wars going on over there, so like some of these guys got to deal with that, so it's important just to be aware of. So how you select your team, at least in my opinion, is more based about what you can afford and where your business is at, right? So you just because you hire someone that's a tier one person, quote unquote, right, or an expensive setter, does not mean that you're going to make a bunch of money by hiring them, right? Like you could basically throw that money in a dumpster if the opportunity is not right, so you might as well just let that cash on fire. So I want to talk about like perception of opportunity, but I think you guys pretty much cognitively understand this. I'm just going to breeze through this part a little bit. This is the second time I've done this presentation. So basically like your setters and the people that are going to be working for you, they're going to be looking at your opportunity like a vehicle, right? And so like, let's say you had to travel across the world, what kind of vehicle you're going to do it in? You could swim, right? That's your body. Technically you can make it there. You probably die on the way, but technically it's an option, right? You can use a boat and you can use a plane, right? So obviously most people are going to choose the right vehicle for whatever the opportunity they are looking for, right? So for me, I'm going to put like these three scenarios, and the reason I'm speaking about it like this is because how people build their business is going to be up to you, right? But I'm going to show you 3 scenarios where or how I would pick my team based on where you're at, right? So I call scenario 1 the sports car, meaning that your business is at like 50K plus per month already, right? So like this offer is already selling pretty decent, right? So you could probably afford a team of tier 1 setters, right? You don't need to build like, you don't need to necessarily hire a bunch of them right off the bat, but you can afford tier 1, right? If you're 50K plus. And then alternatively, right, if you wanted to, you could work with a team of tier 2 setters. You would basically have better profit margins, right? But you just have to have better systems. Does that make sense for like tier 1, tier 2, right?
Yeah.
And if you're at 50K a month, I definitely don't recommend working with tier 3 setters. Like you might as well go for the quality because your offer is already good. And then so you have like the luxury car, which is like 20 to 50K, right? I would recommend that if you're 20, 50K, that you're at the tier 2, like you build a team of tier 2 setters. And the reason I say that is because your profit margin is going to be a lot better, right? And then usually you're going to get a better like team member because comparatively they're making more money. So they're going to stay with you longer. Usually what I found is that, I mean, obviously if you teach, if you work with people from overseas, they are usually the opportunity you give them is one of the ones that they are not going to be able to give up very easily because they're making so much more money than they would if they worked like a normal job in their other country. So this can help you with like actually having a stable team, right? Because the number one problem that I see or that I hear about when, especially building sales teams is like the churn, right? You have someone that'll be an appointment setter or someone who can work for you for like a month or two, right? That's all commission. And then like they don't make any money, they disengage, et cetera, right? But with tier 2 guys, like let's say they have a bad month, well, that bad month is still really good for them. You know what I mean? So like the ebbs and flows can sustain more. Cool. And then obviously you have your tier 3 or scenario 3, which is your starter car. You're less than 10K a month. I don't think anyone's here with that. But basically, I would recommend if you're at less than 10K per month that you go with a tier 2 setter, or you go with someone who's a tier 3, but they speak English very well. So like Turkey is a great country, for example. They have great currency advantage. A lot of the people there speak English. And the money that they'll make is going to be like crazy big, right? Like a doctor in Turkey makes like $800 a month in US.
How much like an hour? Are you paying them hourly or commission only?
Yeah. So I have a mix. I've done it where it's hourly and I've done it where it's commission only. I would say I was talking to Dylan about this for you guys. My guy is hourly, but that's because I do DM sets. But I think that we can like for your specific process, you're gonna need a blend. And we can talk about that in just a minute. Yeah.
I have a quick
Yeah,
question.
right now we have like $3 an hour people, and they're all from the Philippines with really good English.
Perfect. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, see, like really good English is very ideal.
It's just the grammar that's a little off sometimes, like you said.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Do
And
they use Grammarly? Are they using like Grammarly and like any other those tools?
No, so they have a preset of answers because so the first week that I was with them, I stayed on with them for like X amount of time and I coached them through like what it is that we do, gave them contacts, full 9 yards. Now, whenever they have questions, they come to me and they're like, "Hey, is this right to send?" And I say yes or no. And then if it's not, then I correct them and help them understand better.
Okay. Got it. That makes sense. Yeah, and so Cora, I'll show you guys one of my script documents later, just to make sure to remind me. But that ties in with Kara's thing about like putting brain on a document.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Cool.
And then real quick, Kara Reininger, what was your question?
Yeah, I was curious, does the price of your offer have an impact on the level that you should choose of the people?
I would say so. And so the reason I say that is because, so like, here's an example. Like, let's say I am selling a $25,000 or $50,000 offer, right? Well, the appointment setter that I want talking to that person is probably not going to be someone that doesn't speak English very well, right? But the person that could talk to that person first is the outbounder. And so I was actually thinking about for you guys, like, you could probably hire someone hourly that just does outbound for you. And Dylan can break this down a little more later because we were talking about it. But you could hire someone that just does outbound for you hourly, and then that takes them to a setter that speaks really good English, right? So the setter just takes over at the reply, and then you have the person that just does the, you know, the grunt work there. That could work out. But yeah, if you're selling like super high ticket like that, I would not recommend like having like a tier 3 person unless they've tested and proven that their English is good enough and that they can understand and speak well enough to like have an intelligent conversation, right? Because I found that, so an example I'll give is I had an Indian appointment setter on my team for a little bit working on this life insurance account, right? And huge thing. It's like with the people that come in for this particular offer, they're business owners, they're making around $250 to $500,000, you know? And like he was like basically murdering all of those conversations because he wasn't speaking intelligently to them. And so it's like as if somebody's making that much money, like they want to make sure you want to make sure you have an intelligent conversation, you know, and they can tell when it's like a VA or someone that's like not an English speaker, you know what I mean?
Hey, Wally, just to clarify, you're closing 50K deals purely in the DMs, like no
No,
call.
I'm not closing 50K deals in the DMs. I'm just saying if you were to close a 50K in the DMs, our packages are 1K. We do 1K straight through DMs on this account right now.
Okay. And what's
Mhm.
the highest that you've pushed?
For DMs, I personally sold a 10,000. I was selling a 5,000 for about 8 months last year. Yeah, 5,000 through chat, but there's some tactics of how to do it, right? You can actually sell pretty big ticket if you do your pricing right. So meaning like weekly payment stuff works out really good. So for example, we have some people that I work with that are content agencies, and they'll sell like 10 or 12K contract value, right? All through the chat, but it's like 250 a week or like 350 a week or something like that, you know? So the price over time ends up being bigger, but their commitment on the front end is like less. So that's a really good strategy for getting people to buy in the chat, can be to change up your pricing structure.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any stats on buyer's remorse or chargebacks for selling higher ticket products or on a payment plan? Like similar to Facebook ads, right? You buy something late at night when you're scrolling, and then you wake up in the morning, you're like, shit.
Well, so I would say through chat, it's about it's about what that onboarding experience looks like. So meaning like if they buy through chat and I get them like onboarded immediately and I put them in front of a person within 24 hours, it's usually fine, right? And then obviously if your product's good, then great. But if your product's not good, then you're gonna get a refund no matter what anyway. So so it doesn't matter. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, and yeah, keep on coming with the questions as we go. So I think someone had a question about commission structures. So I have this little slide pulled up for that as well. So like I like base against commission for the first hire, right? I think that you can play with the commission structure later. Meaning like
It's like a draw, right?
exactly. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah, like a draw. Yeah. I find that giving them a little bit of security, it helps, right? Not them knowing that they're at least going to make a certain amount of money per month, right? And then that allows them to kind of perform well. I find that like if people like an appointment setter that hasn't ever done appointment setting or is new to it, like they will get discouraged very quickly if there's no base, right? So you just want to be cognizant of that. Let's see. Yeah, Dylan, 50K packages is book a call through chat, 100%. Like I would drop a VSL and the VSL would be like explaining the program a little bit. And then I would then book a call after they watch that VSL through chat.
Wally, how long do you keep somebody on based on performance? You're talking about a $1,500 draw here. What if they don't make commission?
What if they don't make commission?
Yeah, what if they don't sell anything or book anything? Like how long are you keeping somebody on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for me, like at the beginning, I would probably not have someone like I probably not have a tier 1 person. I probably have like a tier 2 or tier 3 person. I'm gonna give them like 2 months, right? If they're brand new, then I might give them a little more leeway. But I gotta see some like significant action, you know, like I've got to be able to track their reps and like see that they're actually like doing it. Because if they're just sitting there, that's a different story, right? Obviously, we're going to fire them, but like I think effort also is a part of it, and it depends on where you're at right now. Do you want someone who's going to kill it right off the bat today? Is that where you're at in your business, or are you kind of further back where you need to train someone to be better? You know, that's like a personnel question.
Sure. And then how much volume, like how many conversations are you expecting people, or how do you track that? Messages, conversations, like.
Yeah, so I use a software called MiniChat and that's how I track like leads or like, how many people DM and stuff like that. I can show you what MiniChat looks like here in a second. And then the one thing for outbound is you can't really track it other than to tally it, right? So for when you're doing outbound, there's really the only way to track it is to kind of get the person to manually think, hey, I did 10 or 12 outbounds. In MiniChat, you can track it, but you'd have to tag it afterwards. So it's still even a little finicky there.
Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Cool.
And this is all based off of a $1,000 package, right? Like the 10%. Okay.
Yeah, well, so this, yeah, exactly. Yeah, this could be based off the $1,000 package, right? And I just put these here, like honestly, like these are really more of like the numbers that I'm thinking of that you could use. I'm not saying to use these at all. And in fact, I'll talk to Dylan earlier, and I'm going to explain this later. I actually use pooled commissions for my personal team, and I'm going to show you guys kind of a little bit more about that later. Are you familiar with pooled commissions, Laura? You know what that is? Like where
No, but I'm assuming it's like the restaurant type thing where like you pool together your tips and then you split it against
exactly.
everybody or
Yeah, yeah. It's
something.
very similar to that.
Okay.
Yep. Mhm. Yep. So I'll show you kind of what we do there to structure our stuff out. But awesome. Okay, cool. So we'll hop in the next thing. So we'll go into training now. So how I train my team and kind of all the stuff that's important. You just need 5 things, right? You need a handbook. So handbook being like, hey, these are like the things that we like do's, don't. I'll show you guys a Bible here in a second, and that'll kind of answer that question. Regular cadences of communication. So you need regular meetings. I'll go over that. You need a way to track the data, of course. You need KPIs to hold them accountable to, and obviously accountability.
For the templatized stuff too, Wally, on the ones you have from the document, don't you guys have a lot of those built out as templates in MiniChat as well, where they can just click it and then paste?
They don't even have to paste it actually. So I'm glad you pointed that out, Dylan, because I've seen this doc so many times, so I forget. So you see all these parts where I have like it says tag right here. So this is actually a tag inside of MiniChat. For example, like qualify, right? This is a tag in MiniChat. My team doesn't even have to like type out that full script. They can just add tag qualify, and then this part's going to drop out for them.
Nice. That's handy.
Same thing. I have pretty much every script is like that. So if they recognize that it fits, then they will add the tag, and then the next part will come out.
Does the tag prompt a new automation, like a new campaign, or is it just a message snippet?
Yeah, it's just a message snippet. Yeah, the tag is just for the rest of the messages to come out.
Is that a function of ManyChat though? Like, can you tag to change campaign?
Yeah, 100%. You can absolutely do that. But yeah, that's how I speed up the team, so that way they don't have to copy and paste. They just add. So like if they see the script, they're like, all right, cool, I'm good. I add this tag, and then the script will come out, and they can continue on moving forward. This is like most people don't use MiniChat like this. Most people use it for like fully automated conversations. I would say like this is probably like my unique thing. If you were to pick thing of how I use MiniChat would be this. Yeah. For the tagging stuff. Cool. So do you guys have any questions on that or anything? What you got?
Like how deep into the automation and the workflows and stuff within ManyChat can you go? Like if Allison
Very.
it's kind of
Very. Yeah, you can go very, very far.
Hey.
Yeah, I mean, like, there's like I mean, some people have built some really, really cool solutions, but I mean, pretty much the primary thing we use for MiniChat right now is for email collection. Because like I hate landing pages, right? Because it's like you send someone to a landing page, what's your opt-in rate on a landing page usually? Like not like maybe like 20%, 30%, if you're good, right? But like, how easy is it for you to like message someone what their email is? And how easy is it for them to send it to you? Pretty easy, right? So we have an automation set up that will ask them for their email, and then once they give it to us, it'll like port up into our CRM, which is super useful. Okay.
And then what CRM do you use, Wally?
So I'm using Go High Level.
Okay, and ManyChat can push and pull as far as like API and integrations and stuff.
Mhm.
Okay. Are you doing any outbound on GHL, which would reflect on ManyChat, or is it just syncing the information from ManyChat into the CRM?
So some of it would reflect in GHL because so ManyChat has an inbox that connects Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp, right? So Instagram and Facebook have inboxes in GHL as well. So those messages would show. The ones that wouldn't show would be like text messages because ManyChat, it does have text messages, but those inboxes wouldn't be connected. So if you got text or anything on the GHL side, it wouldn't show up. But yeah, so that's how we have it set up. So I have a ManyChat set up, and then I use most of the automations there, and then we have a Go High Level setup behind it as well to kind of connect all the dots, so to speak.
But Wally, do you just use Go High Level to track the CRM stuff, or do you use it for other stuff as well?
So we're using it for a lot of stuff. Pretty much everything, to be honest. We use it for email marketing. We use it for like building out like onboarding funnels and stuff like that, right? I mean, the normal stuff. I would say that the biggest secret we use Go High Level for is just the like pretty much just like the email collection, because the email collection automatically happens in Go High Level. So like once that chat happens in ManyChat, right? So let's say you're talking to someone and they drop their email, Go High Level will automatically pick up the email right out of it, right out of the chat without you having to like say anything. It'll automatically like put the contact in there. So that's awesome. So that way, anytime you ask someone for their phone number or email, then both of those things automatically get pulled into the Go High Level, which is super sick, you know? So you can just do it through a conversation instead of like having to like get them to opt in. And that's really useful.
That's pretty cool. One other question is like, how do you track like how many follow-ups, let's say a setter on your team is doing per day? Is there a way to track that?
I got you right here. And on point number 3, a way to track. I got you. Cool. Okay, so we talked about the handbook. So we'll go ahead and just go right back in. So I told you all the stuff, or I just showed you the setter handbook, but basically this is all the stuff that needs to go in it, like your client avatar, some kind of daily SOP for the agent. Like they need to know what they need to do every single day. I think I shared my SOP doc with you guys the last huddle that we did here for the agent team. But basically, yeah, that needs to be in there. How to script, all that stuff. I showed you guys that. And then KPIs. So I'm going to cover KPIs with you guys in just a minute. But there are really 3 that I care about. Like how many outbounds you send a day, and then the number of bookings, and then like conversations per hour, which is a little tougher to measure, but we'll talk about that, like how to really see that. Cool. So cadences of communication. That was the second part of team building, right? So I kind of use 3 different ways to keep in touch with 3 different cadences. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the word cadences. I learned that like 3 years ago, and that's like changed my life. But then like I feel like when I tell other people that, it's like they're like, what are you talking about? Why do you keep saying this word? Anyway, so we have a daily stand-up, right? Monday through Friday, ideally in the morning. I find that if you do a daily stand-up like closer to like afternoon, evening, not as effective. Like I kind of like the daily stand-up meeting to be more like motivational and like helping people like get started for the day, you know? And I find that if you push it to later in the day, it's just not as effective. Weekly stand-up meetings. So you have your daily stand-up, and there should be 1 time a week. And it needs to be the same day. And it could be Monday, Friday, Wednesday, whatever you want to do, right? But this is specifically I call it a 1% better meeting. Okay. So 1% better is meanings like, hey, these are the things that I'm seeing that are like messed up in the account or messed up in the conversations or something's going wrong or something's not working, right? And we on that call decide how are we going to like implement a 1% improvement to basically alleviate all those problems, right? Now, I don't know if you guys, I mean, my math is not like super good, but like, you know, if you do 1% every single week or 3% every single week, implement a new change, right? You know, that's going to stack up over time. So that's kind of the idea of like why you need to do a weekly stand up, but it needs to be separate than like your daily one, because like you want this specific one to be focused on like fixing problems or coming up with things to like solve in the system. Does that make sense? Yes, cool. And then a daily end of the report. I like end of day reports. So number of offers made, number of confirmed sales or bookings, or number of pending sales. And you don't need all three of those. It's going to depend on what the person's role is, right? They could be a setter or a closer. But yeah, they need some kind of like end of the day report, right? For cadences and communication. Now a way to track data. So I'm going to show you guys one of my tracker sheets. This is an example. This is the live one, but there's like too much stuff going on in this sheet for me to do that. So I'm going to pull up the example. Cool. So Balaz, I don't know what kind of tracking system you're using for the DMs, if you're using like a spreadsheet or something like that. But I found that something like this is a really easy way to do it. My screen is not loading correctly. Okay, cool. So like if you're, for example, let's say that you were Instagram only, right? Well, what you could do is you could put an Instagram profile link in here, right? And then basically I have these little columns over here that say, you know, follow-ups, right? And then you could add like little check boxes in here, right? And you could say, hey, you know, I did follow 1, 2, 3, 4, or whatever. You know what I mean? So this could be a way to hold them accountable to it, because then you could have them all in one list and you can just look at the follow-up list and be like, oh, well, you know, Sally, Sue, number 4, 5, 6, and 7 are missing follow-ups. You know what I mean?
Got you. It's a little hard to track because, you know, maybe some people are getting the second follow-up, maybe some people are getting the sixth, so it's hard to track like how many each team member is sending, or you don't really care about that too much.
Well, so when you say how many they're sending, are you meaning like how, like physically how many follow-ups they're sending a day?
Yeah.
Okay, just like the literal number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, if you do it on a sheet like this, obviously it's going to be a little more granular, but for the purposes of your team working in a flow, they're probably just going to hit the chat and like do the follow-ups, right? I mean, you see what I'm like, in terms of a workflow, they're probably not going to want to use the spreadsheet to do it. If they're just doing follow-up like that. So what I would do on your end to track it is really like, you kind of have to audit, because like you kind of have to audit them like whenever they're not paying attention. You know what I mean? You kind of have to
Got you.
hop in there
Yeah,
and check it out.
that's exactly the thing that I just want to have like a better system where we could actually track, because right now they ballpark it, they kind of count it in a number or like in their head, whatever. But I know that's not 100% accurate.
So what I would do instead of setting a specific number, I would tell them to like do it at a specific time of their shift. So for example, I would say, hey, look, you got 2 follow-up hours and you're going to do it right at the beginning and right at the end of your shift. And then to make it really clean, you know, and then tell them to put a timer or do it that way. I know that's like not necessarily like, hey, I want a specific number of follow-ups, right? But if you give them a time of day to do them, then that gives you an easier time to audit them, you know? So
Yeah,
like if you're expecting them to do it like 8 p.m., then you can hop in at 8 p.m. and be like, hey, you're not doing your follow-up. What's up?
is it this way how you do it, by the way? Or like with VLDs and PLDs, like do you track if they follow up within 30 minutes or so and then 6 to 8 hours later and stuff?
Oh, got it. I use automation for that. So
Gotcha.
I know
Yeah,
that. Yeah, I use so like, yeah, for that specific question, yeah, I use automation to make sure that
yeah,
happens.
because it's within 24 hours, you can do that in ManyChat, but for the next one, you can't. I see.
Yeah, after 24 hours you can. Yeah, so but for the first day, I use all the mini chat automation I can.
Nice.
Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, so the easiest way for me to explain that would be to show you one of my flows. So let me pull it up real quick. Let me pull up the
I think for you
ranks.
too, Balaz, having someone who can like full time go and be on it, manage, like Coral was sitting here nodding her head because she's like the queen of checking that stuff. Like she's like fucking on it, dude. Like
So
she
check.
makes sure that people are like actually accountable. They're looking through. She reviews the messages. Like she's like on top of it. So I think
And
having
I do
someone,
everything manually. Like
yeah,
my team does everything manually, and we put in dates on when they follow up. So like for the first message, they'll put in when like the first message was sent out, and then they'll put the date of when it was like the second follow-up is supposed to be sent out, and they'll put like a green color to make sure that they did actually do it to hold themselves accountable. And I only did that because I went through the process myself, because I knew oh shit, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, you kind of have to like force them into a process. So like I find that like instead of like saying, hey, do follow up and letting them do it on their own time, it's better to just assign the time and say,
Mhm.
hey, you're gonna do this now at this time. And then it makes it easy for you to check on them too, because you know that they're gonna be doing it at specific times. You know what I mean? The other side about this that I wanted to so you meant somebody asked like what was the like can I explain that further? This is how I'd explain it. So I have like every single one of my scripts that come out when I drop it, I have 2 automated follow-ups that will come out to make sure that this person is followed up with properly. So this first one comes out in 90 minutes and the second one comes out in 8 hours. So I get two follow-ups here through mini chat if they don't respond. So I kind of cover some of that. I cover as much as I can with automation, basically, Balaz.
But do you do that with every single like message snippet tag that you guys use?
The answer is yes. And it took a
Good.
long time to build. Yes.
Yeah, it makes sense.
No, I mean, if you don't believe me, here, I'll show you.
Mine looks the same. I get it.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I mean, I
It's
literally,
crazy. Yeah.
yeah, you can get in the weeds in there for sure. It gets nuts. That's why I was like, Sammy was like, how far can you go? I was like, you can go far. I've stared at the screen a lot for sure. Okay, cool. So I hope that helped, Balaz, but for tracking DMs, decidedly there's not like a really good solution out there yet. There's not a really good one to like track everything. So usually like people get discouraged and will like, go to back to VSL funnels and stuff like that. Because it's like, thousands of DMs. But anyway, I wanted to go back to the presentation because I'll actually, Balaz, me and you can talk like offline on the side, but I'm coming up with a solution for that particular thing that you are struggling with there.
If it's about KPI tracking, can I also be included in that little huddle?
Oh, it's not KPI tracking. No. It's software. It's software. I've got a little like software project on the side that we've been working on for like the last year to solve this like tracking DM problem. Not quite done yet, but it's getting there. Okay, so we have our KPI focused accountability. How do we keep the team accountable? So really, I like the 3 things I really care about is like a number of outbounds per day, right? Because like outbound is one of those things that's like 100% controllable, right? And you just got to, it's kind of like dials, right, Dylan? It's like you just got to do the dials. So this is like outbound, the same thing, right? I find that with outbound though, you don't want them to just hit the number. And what I mean by that is like you kind of need to give them context in terms of who to outbound because they could just be hitting up like terrible leads and you just be filling up your DMs with like all kinds of terrible replies. So like not all outbounds are equal. So they need to be quality outbound sent per day would be kind of how I'd measure this. 2, then the number of like bookings per leads is a really important KPI. So it's like per 100 leads that I get, how many appointments am I making, right? Now, obviously in this case, because they're like super, super cold, that they're not going to be these numbers, right? They're going to be probably much less overall in terms of just like how many leads you get in. But yeah, I would want to track that number over time as well. Cool. And then number of conversations per hour is another metric. This one's also very tough to measure. You kind of have to audit it, like I was talking to you a second ago, Balaz. But what's a really good thing to do is like randomly through the middle of your shift, like this could take like 5 minutes, but it would just be to count all the messages that have been touched in the last 24 hours, right? And just kind of see oh sorry, not 24 hours, in the last hour, last 60 minutes. And so if you just check the last 60 minutes, you can kind of get an idea of over time, like how many conversations are moving, right? And so if you ever notice that this number is like low, then that's an issue with like performance on the team, right? Now again, right, this is an audit. Like you have to actually go in and like do it. This is actually
That's
better
cool.
if like a VA does it or someone like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, conversations per hour is really important because let's say, Balaz, you see that let's say that on average your team is at like 20 conversations or 100 conversations per hour on like a Wednesday, right? And then you look at your data sheet on Friday and you notice that they're down to like 50 or even 25, right? You're like, oh crap, like why, like what's going on in the accounts, like action wise, why aren't there more chats moving, So this can be a really good activity metric. Cool.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Are you going to talk at all about like how much time you should have in messaging before you go in? Like how much time you should be building rapport? How much time before when it comes to booking an appointment? Like, because I've just been seeing with some of my messaging, like it seems like maybe extending it out a little more or more rapport could be helpful. So I'm just curious if you have any like guidelines about that.
Yeah, I do. I think there's a point in which it's called the turn, right? But anyway, yes, I will cover that. That's my last bonus slide because Dylan was telling me about that before the call, and I was like, man, okay, I guess I'm gonna pull out the sauce, but this is cool. But yes, I'm gonna cover that. That's gonna be my very, very last slide. Okay, so we're going to go into scaling now. I think I read this book called The Goal. This is actually like, for me personally, I found it was like a really good, just like how to think about scaling book as a manager, not as like but really from like a management standpoint, thinking about like your teams and stuff like that. I won't go into too much detail about the book, 100%, but basically it was really, really good. I would highly recommend it. So for me, scaling, I find that we have this battle in terms of how I build the compensation for like an appointment setter or like a closing team, this as a team versus individual, right? So we actually we tested this idea. So just for context, we had two kind of structures for commission whenever I was scaling teams for Jason Capital. And I'm going to tell you which one actually won out of the two, but I want to talk about both. So the first one was a pooled commission system, right? So meaning like all the setters worked on the same team. They all worked together to set appointments, and all of the sales that came through, like that, like they all just kind of split that money, right? That was like the first model that we worked in. And the second model we worked in was like completely individualized, right? Where every single person was kind of like responsible for their own, thing, and they got commission on their specific sales, right? And I found that basically the pooled commission actually won out over time, right? The individual worked out pretty good in like some of like the lower numbers, right? But as the team started scaling up when getting like 500, 1,000, 2,000 DMs a day, like the splitting it all up became really inefficient because how fast can one setter manage 250 DMs or 500 DMs that are coming in at one time? It becomes really hectic whenever you start scaling up and getting a lot of volume. So we found that pool commissions actually worked better. So I'm gonna go over like the 3 keys to scale, and this is obviously for my specific situation with DM setting. I think that the things I'm gonna cover for scale here can be applied to some of the things that you guys are doing. Because obviously I'm sell by chat, but you guys are booking appointments. So we can talk about how that can be applied for your stuff. So the first key to scale for me is coverage. So I put a photo of McDonald's right here because they're open 24 hours a day. But that's kind of what I did in my DMs, and I'm gonna kind of share that with you guys too. So a common thought process when scaling is like, I get more agents or I get more appointment setters, I make more money. I disagree, actually. I think you can add a less skilled person and actually make less money because leads aren't dealt with properly, right? They burn leads, et cetera, et cetera. So I found that like when scaling specifically in DMs for IG DMs, it's better to build like a 24-hour coverage structure where basically you have 2 agents, right? One agent is in the US time zone. So they cover basically like, call it 10 a.m. Eastern all the way to like 8 p.m. Eastern. And then they hand off to someone who's overseas, like in like the Philippines, or something like that. And then they take over for the evening, quote, hours, but it's their daytime, right? So I kind of have like this handoff system for the team. So we're always working 24 hours a day. Like the count's always moving in terms of chats because of that process, if that makes sense. Right. So the
7 days a week.
Go ahead.
Do you do that 7 days a week?
No, so we used to run it 7 days a week, and like just to be upfront, and like I just don't want to run a sweatshop. Like I want people to have like a really good time and like have a good work. You know what I mean? Like I want them to like enjoy working and be able to like still have time and do stuff, right? So I do it 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. And then I basically I have one like mandatory 4-hour shift over the weekend, but they can do it whenever they want. They can do it 4 hours on Saturday, 4 hours. I don't care when they do it. They could do it an hour, 2 hours a day, whatever. But they just have like a little bit of time that they put on the weekends. And then usually they take one full day off. So Saturday or Sunday, something like that. Yeah. Cool. And so like when you're scaling out for platforms, right? So obviously we were just talking about Instagram. I'm thinking like if you had like a Facebook and an Instagram situation and you were building out and you had both sides going, then you would do 2 setters on Instagram and 2 setters on Facebook. Both of them like US time zone and then Philippines time zone or whatever, right? Not to say Philippines just happened to be the one that comes to my head because I have a really awesome girl from the Philippines that works for me right now. And she's like, English is amazing. She's just a great work ethic, like awesome. Cool. So first key to scale, coverage, like getting the coverage problem solved. And it's funny because like people are like, Wally, like why does it matter to have full coverage? It's because of all the time zones, right? Like 12 midnight Eastern is 9 p.m. in California, right? So that's not nighttime yet. There's still people active at that time, you know? So really, like people are going to be responding to chats all the way up until like 2 p.m. our time, or sorry, 2 a.m. our time. So really, like that's actually the window of coverage, which is so that extra 6 hours that our Philippines person covers, like that's actually a big deal. Bigger deal than most people would think. Cool. Okay. Awesome. So second key to scale is wait, so Sammy says for pooled commissions, there's no lead assignment, right? So the team operates, manage inbox. Correct. Yeah. So for pooled commissions, there's no lead assignment. It's literally they all have the same script and the same process. And so their goal is to basically make every conversation like look very similar and like move it the same way that they're supposed to according to the process and script, right? And I find that actually like helps out a lot because everyone on the team knows the system, and so like they can kind of plug in and play anywhere. Cool. So for the data side, that's a second key to scale. So like I'm just going to kind of cover the bottlenecks, right? So number one bottleneck, assuming that you're not running ads, is going to be like organic lead generation, right? So data points that you kind of need to find out is like what hooks are working best to drive leads, what kind of content is getting the most engagement, what CTAs are performing best. Like my best CTA right now is actually we do it with a book, and we say, hey, by the way, you can get a free copy of my book. It's selling on Amazon for $27, but if you message me, you can get it for free, right? So that's actually a really good CTA for us. But like you got to kind of find like what call to actions drive really good leads for you organically. If you're relying on that, obviously I know a lot of you guys are doing cold too, but you still need to be posting content as well on top of that, right? Because people are going to come check out your page. Cool.
Dylan, to follow up on your comment, Laura needs to get her content right.
Yeah, piggyback. Yeah, use me. Yeah, make me the enemy. I said it, not Coral. Cool. So for the second bottleneck is usually like what I find with scale is like making sure that your team is consistently like hitting KPIs, right? So there's some data points that you need to know, like how many leads am I getting, right? How many leads have seen the offer? So this is a VLD, right? So how many VLDs are we sending out? How many payment links are we sending out? Or how many appointment links are we dropping per day? And then how many sales or how many booked appointments per day, right? So like you need to know like your like what number you're trying to get to in terms of your goals, right? And then you got to work backwards from there and just kind of set like weekly targets. So for example, for us, we know that our target in like the account that I'm working in right now is 150 leads a week is basically all I need to hit my targets, right? So like you just kind of need to know your numbers for what you're trying to go for. I assume some of you guys have done that before. Where you're like, hey, I need this many number of calls and this many number of closes to get to that, right? So that's the same thing you're kind of reflecting into the team here. And then the third bottleneck will be the number of platforms where you have an audience, right? So I think you should, if you don't have a platform that's strong right now, or if you have one that's strong, then just keep working on that one. Like, there's no reason to kind of like spread yourself thin. I find that A lot of people will try to spread themselves thin and like build a bunch of appointment setting teams for no reason, and waste some money. So don't do that. Cool. So third key to scale, I find is like division of labor. So I put this picture of volleyball here because I find that division, like volleyball has like really good like division of roles, which I think is cool. And that's kind of how I have my team set up as well, like division of roles, right? So now this is where my particular strategy is going to differ a lot from you guys on this specific part, the division of labor, because the way my system works is, and I'm going to share this with a whiteboard instead. So I'm going to draw some boxes real quick. Sorry. I'm going to try to do it fast. And that box is not a box. That's more of a rectangle. All right. So I get a lead. They get a VLD, or in our case, they see a video. Right. And then we have a PLD, and this stands for either a payment link or an appointment link. And then you have, money or a call. Right. So this is kind of the process. So for us, I split this right down the middle, right here, into two roles. So for me, I have like a setter, a chat setter, right? And I have a chat closer. So what happens is as the leads as we're talking to them, right? My setter takes over first. And then at a certain point in the conversation, he actually hands it over to our chat closer, where then the chat closer will finish the conversation. Does that make sense? So that's division of labor for us. Now, for you guys, I think it's a little different. I think it looks more like this. And Dylan, you can probably chime in right here to help out with the structure or different things like that. But I'm thinking you have like an outbounder who's like full-time sending messages outbound. And this can be hourly or whatever. And then you have your like setter right here.
Exactly. Yep.
Right. And so then you have your full-time outbounder, and then you obviously have your closer over here. And this is your, on Zoom. So you guys could do like division of labor like this, where you have someone who's like full-time outbounding, right? And this person it can be cheap. This is like a $3 an hour role, right? And then you have your setter, who's a commission role. Or you could either do a commission role, or you could have them like commission plus, like flat, some kind of like flat incentive. So for example, it could be like qualified shows on a call. And it's like maybe they get like $50 or $75 for a qualified show on call. Plus they get commission, for example. Not to say you have to do it like that, but that's an example. And then obviously the closer is fully commission. Rectangles offend me. I prefer triangles. That's funny. But does that make sense in terms of like division of labor, like how you guys could kind of like break up the process into like more manageable steps? Because the reason being is it's like the setter, right? Really, you want them setting appointments. So if they have someone focus on getting all the replies and they can just focus on appointments, like that would be the most ideal scenario, right? Because usually like the tasks that take up the most time is the outbound process for an appointment setter.
When it's purely in chat, what's the benefit of splitting it?
Oh, what's the benefit of splitting it? Doing it like this? So there is no benefit at low lead flow, but there is a benefit whenever I'm driving 500, 600, 700 leads a day. And so this system, this system's built for that. Yeah, because so for us for Brandon's account, we were averaging around 400, 500 leads a month, but we've done this all organic. We're about to turn on ads. And so we're starting to do shout outs and stuff now. So we're starting to get like 20, 30, 40 DMs a day already. But whenever we were running Jason Capital's accounts, we were getting like 2,000 DMs a day, you know, being able to like manage that much volume, you know? So this system is really good for helping manage like very large volume of chats. Which is why I like the $1,000 a month model, or so not $1,000 a month, but like the $1,000 course offer model, because whenever you do it with volume like this, you can really see some nice numbers. Cool. Okay, so this is division of labor. What'd you say?
I guess I'm still kind of confused because if it's first in, first out, right? That would be the hierarchy. So everybody's going out at the same cadence. But what's the benefit of splitting them if they have a templated process, right? And it's not like sending somebody to a Zoom call who needs to be more proficient at speaking. Excuse me, that needs to be more proficient at speaking. It's all in chat. I'm not quite clear on that.
Yeah, so the reason is because right here, after they see this VSL, they're going to have questions. So you got to be able to overcome objections right there. And that's why there needs to be a handoff, because overcoming objections in chat is kind of like overcoming objections on a sales call, but it requires more time, right? But let's say, Sammy, you can do it right now, 100%, right? But let's say you have 200 people talking to you right now that need a response back, right? It's almost impossible for you to like be able to manage that without a handoff if you're trying to do the whole process end to end. That makes sense?
Yeah, but we were talking about pooled commissions, so pooled inbox, right? Did I understand that right?
So yes, yeah. So for pool commissions, I have pool commissions on these two roles. So I would have basically a pool for setters and I have a pool for closers.
I get that. I'm just gonna have to look at the tool and I'll figure it out. But thank you.
Okay. Yeah. I maybe I didn't understand your question, and let me know if I can clarify more. But yeah, that's basically the reason why, though, is because in chat, like on a phone call, right, I would set the appointment and then they would get on a Zoom call and then they would talk to someone there. Like like on the Zoom call, I can answer as many questions because I'm not there live, you know. But in chat, I send them a video, but they still have more questions. So you still have to be able to like answer them. And it is scripted, yes, but it still requires like this process over here takes a little bit more time than this side, right?
Okay.
And so at scale, you want to make sure that you are able to process leads. And so that's why you want to divide it, because that way you get people coming to the video and then people going through the video on this side.
Yeah, it's more time efficiency, because if you have a lot of conversations, the people on the left just go through and be like, okay, I'm only going to focus on the ones who don't have VLDs yet. And that's like their main focus. But the people on the right, the chat closers, they're only going through the people who've already had questions and gone through that step of the process. So from an efficiency standpoint, they're being very efficient at one role to manage the conversations, compared to I have to manage all the chaos and then handle both.
And so is the quality of the chat closer higher? Like, do they do some independent thinking, less templates, more objection like?
Yeah.
Yes.
So usually the chat setter is an hourly person. I have an hourly person here now, and they handle this part. And then I have the chat closer as a commission person. Yep.
Cool. Thank you.
And they work together, right? So like, you know, the chat closer is always giving feedback to the setter and saying, hey, make sure you do this, do this better. Thank you.
So they always work together at the same time, pretty much.
100%. Yeah. 100%. Yep. Cool. All right. Let's see here. Then I'll go back to this. Okay, yeah. So the division of labor. That was pretty much it right there. Yeah. Okay, cool. And then the final bonus, which I want to cover, was this B2B outbound stuff, right? Cool. So someone asked the question, like, it feels kind of weird. Like, how do I like start like to pivot this conversation over, right? So I think if you guys just think about this as a framework real quick, I think that this will help you out a ton. So a lot of you guys are already doing the bottle opener question, so I don't need to tell you what that is, but it's basically that first outbound message, right? So it's like, what message are you sending them to get the response? I don't know what that is for your specific offers, but you're sending some kind of message, right? Cool. You're gonna get that message. You're gonna start learning about, and then as soon as they respond back to that, right? I call this the networking frame, because you're gonna start like asking questions about their business, like, but not in like a salesy way, like kind of like let's say you met someone at a coffee shop, right? And they told you that, oh, maybe they told you that they're doing the same thing that you do, right? Well, you're gonna start asking them questions about the business in a different way, not in a salesy way. You're just gonna be like curious, like, about them, right? Want to learn more. That's the frame I kind of want you guys to think about, because that's how you're gonna, like, you want this person to think that you're genuinely interested in everything about them, right? So you start with that, and then I have this third step on it here, because like usually when you start asking them about their situation, like let's say if you said something like, "Hey, how do you get clients right now?" Let's say that's the question, right? Well, maybe they're gonna say, "Oh, I get clients through referrals, or I send cold DMs or whatever," right? Well, then you're gonna insert a diagnosis. You're gonna say something like, "Hey, the reason I asked that is because I noticed that you're not running ads, or you're not doing something," right? You're gonna have some kind of diagnosis about them. And the reason you want a diagnosis is because that's going to frame you as an expert, right? Now, not to say you're going to give them advice, right? You're just going to kind of point out something. And then you're going to start asking them like specific questions about their business, stuff like that. And the idea here is you just want to be curious. Now, the part where the conversation turns is right here. Like after you ask them enough questions, eventually they're going to say something to the effect of, "Okay, but like, what do you do?" Right? What do you do? How do you help? And that's your invitation to actually start like that's where you actually have your foot in the conversation now, right? But until then, you have pretty much no reason to pitch them or anything, no reason to tell them about what you have to offer right off the bat, because you have no relationship or anything yet, right? This person's like completely cold. But then once that conversation has turned and they become interested about you, now you actually got their attention, right? And so then that actually gives you the ability to share a video with them, right? Maybe you have a VSL, or maybe you have something that like a YouTube video that shares more about your offer, stuff like that, right? Then you're going to actually be able to kind of start telling them about what you have to offer. If they share some interests, then you can offer them a call, right? Or you can send a VSL, depends on your process. And then you basically book them at that point. But I think the turning point for me, whenever I'm going through this framework, is literally like they're gonna switch from like who's messaging me to who is this, right? Or like tell me more about you. And once that kind of that frame shifts, then that's what allows you to kind of start that conversation. Was that helpful, Kara?
Yes, that was excellent. Thank you.
Yeah, I think patience is key here. One of the things I've noticed just
For
from
super cold, yeah. For super
being
cold.
over Wally's shoulders is like the accounts he manages have like 10x less accounts than like the bigger ones that he's been on with millions of followers. And his numbers are better than the ones with millions of followers. And so when I was looking at stats, I was like, dude, how the fuck is that even possible? And he just smiles. He's like, we're very patient. Everyone else they're very rushed to trying to get to the book car, get to the sale, where he extends it. And just if he knows that someone's not ready for that next step, he won't go there. And so his output and his sales is significantly higher. He has way better numbers than accounts that are doing like 2 million followers, where everyone else is just rushing for the gun. And then they take a hit because they burn it out too quickly. So his accounts never hit burnout. So he can keep the process going and going and going and going. And that's really like his competitive advantage. So kind of like the joke you talked about earlier, like you guys had the foreplay. It's okay. Don't burn it out.
We need foreplay.
Sweet. So questions. What everyone think of the presentation? Thumbs up.
Awesome.
What's 1 to 2 takeaways that everyone knows they're going to go and apply to what they're doing right now?
Lube it up.
Division of labor was definitely interesting. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, I agree.
I feel
And
like
which way?
get out more and not booking in that so quickly too.
Elaborate on the division of labor, Coral.
Specifically the 2 different skill sets. I mean, it made total sense. But also like when you have a lot of inbounds coming in, like you want to be as productive as possible with, okay, this part here, like in the first half, like you need somebody who's like basic skill set to be able to just send out this stuff. And then you need somebody with the real skill set of this is how you handle the objections and this is how you lead into whether it's an appointment being booked or like overcoming the objection for the appointment booked or the payment link. And then of course, getting money in the account.
Yeah, like the comprehension piece, right? So you can have these
Yeah,
people
that was dope.
templating and then like actually getting their brain into what somebody's saying and comprehending how to handle the objections so they don't totally bust it. Yeah.
Well, cool. Well, awesome. Well, I hope this was valuable for everyone tonight, and you guys enjoy this presentation. As always, shout out, show some love to Wally. Wally, thank you for your time, dude. Greatly appreciate it. This is an
Yeah.
awesome class.
Yeah.
And
Thanks, Wally.
Yeah, absolutely.
thank you. Hope everyone has a wonderful
Crushed
night. I'll
it.
catch you guys next week.
Appreciate it. See you guys.
Peace.